So let's talk in detail about our ad reference system and understand how the ad reference system differences work. You can invoke the ad reference system by just hitting add in your space, and that allows you to see all of the available tools in your space. By default, you have web search, file search, all of the available models available, the files that you have available, the labels that you created. Let's talk about web search for a second. So what web search is actually doing is it takes your search query and goes out to the search engines and makes the query with them, looks at the result, looks at each of the results pages, provides them in a LLM understandable format so the LLM is then able to make the right responses. So for instance, if I ask the question, how is the US economy doing? What this does now with a web search under the hood, it would go to the search engines, Bing and Google and so forth, and the top search engines that are out there to then like find the right relevant bits and pieces, provide you then under sources the relevant results that it used to generate these answers for you. So here we see that some engine results were with Deloitte, the White House, and so forth. So this is very powerful because you could also just take these data sources and add them as a more like static data source to your web to your space. So important here is these web searches are ephemeral. That means like we throw away the data after we sort of like did that web search. If you want to have them stick around, for instance, adding that Deloitte data source, all you have to do is again adding that data source, particularly this web page, and there you have it more persistent. Interestingly, also when you did this, what we do is we refresh that for you. You can always click here the refresh button and refresh that data source. So we would go then on that homepage again, get the latest content, and store it in our databases. So what's interesting there with the web search is that we're just like using it as an external data source, if you will. There are multiple data sources that you have there. It's not just a web search. The interesting one really is the file search. That's where you can upload thousands of files and find the relevant bits and pieces within these files. We see people using this for their handbooks and manuals where they upload like very huge files. And you have a question about why is this light blinking, for instance, and so forth. So sky is the limit here. You can come up with your use cases, but that's what this feature really allows you. And I did here an example. I uploaded multiple data sources, mostly financial ones, finance data from invoices that I had. But I labeled them all under important. And then I uploaded one about AI policies, also labeled under important. And then I ran a file search with the important label tagged. What that means is we're looking over all of the files that are tagged or labeled important. And then we use the functionality of file search, which is finding within these files the most relevant ones and just using the relevant files for me to then provide me with the answer. So what you see here is as a source, I ask a question about what is an AI policy. It was not using the information that it had in invoices and other like labeled data sources with important. That's very powerful because that makes it more targeted, less hallucination, but it also allows you to pinpoint and organize the way you work through that label system and using these tools that we provide you like a file search to then really like pinpoint to the relevant data automatically for you. If you don't want to do that, you can always ask the same query. Doesn't matter, by the way, if you put that at in front or after. There is some research that shows that it makes sense in certain use cases where the position is. But here, I'll just targeted the label at important and ask the same question. Yet it was able to give me an answer that seems all right because it was using some of that information from the blueprint of AI that is also labeled as important, but it was having also a lot of noise in that. It was also using the invoice data and some resume data that I had. None of that is really relevant. So really, if you want to have just the relevant data for you, then you use the file search. You just see that here as well, that there's file search invoked with it. Or if you want to have it a little bit more broader, or maybe you want to be more creative and see what associative can happen as well with all of the data sources that you provided, then you would just like use that label. But the important part is you're really in control. You can decide when to use what. I think this is so powerful, and I can't stress this out more, that in our ad reference system, you're really in charge. And I think it democratizes essentially the user with AI, what AI tool, what AI is capable of, and when should it be used at what point in time. So let's go further here with our ad reference system. You see that I had web search, I have file search. Now I can also target specific models. On the right, you see here web search, file search, and model, data, and label. These are just the multiple tools that are provided in my environment here in that specific space. And we keep adding more as we speak and pursue this. But the interesting part really is I can target the same request also to a specific model. I can say, for instance, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, hello. So now all of the previous context, by the way, with multi-forking that is going on here, plus my hello gets now targeted to that specific model. What I can also do is, and it's, by the way, sticks here, I can switch and I can say like, okay, I want to maybe use just the finance data and say hello, and see then how a different model is used, and it's provided with that finance data, and it gives us some information of that finance data. So really there's like so much like what you can do with these features and how you can build that ad reference system together and stack it together in whatever context you use it for, that is really like mind-blowing.